fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, welcome back. Here we are.
Let's go. As you will soon discover, we're missing a third voice again this week. Mike is not with us. And I was thinking, Jeff, that you had mentioned not too long ago that you were kind of jealous that when Mike and I did the show by ourselves, up with this moniker, the dynamic duo.
Yeah.
So you and I should have something as well. And
what'd you come up with?
I didn't really come up with much, but I thought you're right. Maybe we should, even if it's just a blatant ripoff of somebody else's intellectual property. You know, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Laverne and Shirley?
Laverne and Shirley. Yeah, we could do that.
Tom and Jerry. Mork and Mindy.
Donnie and Marie.
Ooh, Donnie and Marie. Sonny and Cher. Shields and Yarnell.
Or how about Oates and Garfunkel?
We could mix the two. We could make a whole episode, the ampersand episode.
So yes, it's just going to be Jeff and I today. So all you Mike fans out there, I'm sorry in advance. You know, we don't do this enough. Every once in a while we remember to, but for all the new listeners out there, and we see you, we do see when we pick up some listeners on our various applications that we have access to. You can contact us if you like what you're hearing. If you find yourself listening to more than one of our episodes, you might have a binge problem. We have fragile egos. Please keep this in mind as you listen to the show. We need feedback constantly. To the point where we annoy family and friends. How was the show? Did you listen? How was the show? Did you listen?
We're 75 episodes in and my family does not listen.
Yeah, nobody listens. So we have to rely on you, the strangers to us, to validate this show and validate our ego. So please, if you like what you're hearing, if you don't want us to just give up, throw our headphones down and quit any given day, let us know.
Don't threaten that. They'll beg us, please put your mics down. Put them down.
The most direct way you can contact us is our email. So you can email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That's tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. Even if you have a request, if there's a particular episode you really enjoyed, we'll take anything at this point.
That is really the most we've gotten email-wise are requests.
Yeah.
For movies, for ridiculous movies too.
Yeah, and as Jeff said, we've got some real twisted listeners out there. Yes. Now, just pointing out, we do not really have any news, so we're not bypassing that feature. We just don't have a feature to offer you this week for news. Very slow news week.
Which is probably a good thing. Let's just get into it.
Let's just get into it.
Let's get it.
This is now, if you're trying to explain to somebody, like I dropped off my son to my mother last night on our way to the movies, because obviously I'm not going to take a 9-year-old to go see this movie.
I had kids in my theater.
Oh, so did I. Okay. We'll get into that.
Okay.
So what are you going to see? I'm going to see it. It's like the Abbott and Costello. Who's on first? You're going to see what? I'm going to see it.
First base.
So it is the sequel. Or no.
It's not a sequel.
That. Everybody says this is not a sequel. It's a continuation of the first movie, which I think technically is the definition of a sequel, but
yeah, but this is taken from a book.
Yes,
that was one book, and they just split it into 2 movies.
The first movie is about 6 or 7 characters, the Losers Club, as kids fighting this ancient evil that has set up shop in their town of Derry, Maine.
Is Derry a real place?
I don't think so. I don't think it is.
I liked it. I think
it would be inundated with very weird people if it was.
Right. Yeah, you would. little red balloon sticking out of every manhole.
And then, of course, this movie takes place 27 years later with the same characters, but grown up. They're all grown up as Pennywise.
All grown up.
At one point.
In the book, all this takes place in the book, right?
And it's kind of the stories intertwined because the book starts with the adult characters. There's a flashback to when they were kids, and then it goes into the adult. So it's not too hard to split up that book into two parts.
No, and it made sense. Unless you're going to do this as somehow as a miniseries, which is what the 80 Tim Curry version was.
Yeah, I think it was 87, like if I'm not mistaken.
2-night miniseries on ABC or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right?
And they did the exact same thing. They concentrated on the kids, and then they concentrated on...
they did. Because I get it in a literary sense, but it makes sense cinematically to split it up, to do exactly what they did.
This movie gives Return of the King a run for its money.
The false endings. The Peter Jackson false endings.
Yes.
So I have gone on record that I have never seen the first one, and I am not particularly thrilled with the horror genre. I don't like watching these movies. My wife definitely doesn't like watching these movies, so it's not like I can pull it up. But for the show, I watched Chapter 1, Friday night. So I was fresh off watching it for the very first time, and then stepped into the theater to see Chapter 2 on Saturday. The movie theater, I've said this before too, which is, sitting in the theater is my happy place. So now stick me in front of a malicious clown, and it's no longer my happy place. I am not very happy. But I went because
Seinfeld, worlds are colliding right now.
Worlds are colliding. But I will tell you, I enjoyed the first one. I know we're here to review Chapter 2. But I have to set the stage, which is, again, I'd never seen it. And only after watching Stranger Things and then kind of getting acclimated to this It world did I realize how much that they truly borrowed from Stephen King, this whole subgenre of kids riding bikes. And I really liked the first movie. I thought the kids were well cast. I enjoyed everything that happened in that first movie.
Really?
So I was very looking forward to this.
So would you offer up buckets at this point for the first movie?
Yes, 3.25.
3.25, really?
3.25. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't as scary. I had seen the opening scene before of poor little Georgie, so I knew what was coming. And yeah, I think there's more jump scares in this one, Chapter 2, than in the first one. But I enjoyed immensely the whole kid interaction. It definitely, had, I guess you can't call it Spielberg, but it does have that flavor. But only because Stranger Things has now taken all this stuff and kind of reworked it into its own thing. The idea of these kids being empowered to take this thing down, I really liked it. And then I saw Chapter 2.
Then you saw Chapter 2. Now you see, I forget which episode of TMI we brought up it the last time. However, briefly, I said all that was missing from it were two letters, S and H.
Oh, you didn't like it. You didn't like it. But you also are very fond of the source material.
I am not, actually.
You're not?
I am not.
But you were...
I am don't get me wrong. I love Stephen King and his early 80s, and any Stephen King novel of the 80s, I read probably when it first came out, right up until Dark Half, which I think was 89, and then a few into the 90s. But I never thought was one of his stronger works. I thought it was derivative, really. Because, you're talking about Stranger Things and how it takes from this, and it does, but it in itself is taking from that genre that was created by Spielberg and E.T. So it felt very much like a lift when I was reading it. And it just didn't, the story was kind of forced. There was just something lacking there for me. It was
interesting.
Evil kids have to fight. And without much in the way of explanation, and they didn't offer much in It Part 2 either in the way of explanation.
No. I'm very surprised because I really thought you were going to come in and defend that first movie.
No,
maybe because I don't know.
I think part of the reason why I didn't like, because I read it when I was 16, right? So
what are we talking about? When did this book come out?
87. It came out.
It was that late in the 80s. Okay.
So I was probably either a junior or senior in high school by that time.
Okay, so you've already had the Goonies, you've already had Ghostbusters, you've already had a lot of these other...
English teacher, when it first came out, he and I were reading it simultaneously because he was also a Stephen King fan. And after we were done, we had a discussion, and he didn't like it either. And we both zeroed in on one scene in the book that did not make it, both in the miniseries and in this new movie. In order for the kids to bond in the book to beat Pennywise, and this is when they were kids and not when they were adults, and it's the same group of characters, one girl and is it 5 guys, 6 guys?
Yeah.
They come to the conclusion that they all have to have sex with the girl to bond.
What?
So it's like a bizarre 12-year-old, 13-year-old gangbang scene. It was upsetting to read as a 16-year-old. I'm like, what is going on here? So they have to do this to come closer together to beat Pennywise. I'm like,
no pun intended.
What happened to the secret handshake? What happened to just cutting your hand and doing?
Holy crap! So the Losers Club was really the statutory rape club.
It was. And
wow,
I'm not surprised.
How does that get by the editors? How does an editor be like, you know what, Steven, this is great, but.
Yeah, I know.
When he was just doing it, he was editing his own crap at that point.
So I'm actually very glad that scene did not survive.
I'm gonna back you up on that. I'm very glad that didn't show up because there was some the Beverly's backstory I thought was more disturbing than half the Pennywise scene.
Yeah, and it made it because that backstory was there in the novel, but then this extra aspect, like it took her character to even darker places. And
yeah,
she was down with it. It was like, why?
Yeah, right. I mean, if I was her, I'd be like, we can't come up with something else.
Yeah, it's like, I guess he's gonna kill us.
How about we all have sex with Richie? Why is it gotta be me? Oh man, wow.
But also seeing the first one, I just thought it was too F-bomby, and that it was forced, I think, to hit that R rating. It was just it didn't give me good vibes with the kids.
Okay.
All
Okay, so we both walked into the theater. This theater for this one with slightly different expectations.
Yes.
So you already had a preconceived notion that you probably weren't going to like this.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And even if I didn't have that preconceived notion, I'm not sure if I would have liked it. Part 2. So
I think we're on the same page.
Before we get into the actual story, let's set the scene. What was your theater like when you sat down?
It was actually pretty empty, and then because I got there late, it filled up pretty quick. But as I mentioned, there were a fair amount of people with kids. And I don't know if because the first one was kind of a kid-centric empowerment, and somehow these kids had seen the first one and convinced their parents. I don't know. It was weird because the Beverly backstory is very uncomfortable. And there's some, in this day and age, it's all CG blood and all this other crap, but it's still horror. It's still scary. Kids are getting eaten. People are getting dismembered. And so I just found that really bizarre. And again, I've gone on record. I've shared things with my children that at an age they probably were not ready for, but not in the theater. I remember going to see Spider-Man 2. And when Doc Ock's arms started attacking, the kid behind me is like, Dad, this is scaring me. Dad, I don't like this. And the dad is just like, shh, just shut up. Shut up. I'm like, that kid's probably still in therapy. He probably has his own podcast now talking about that event, traumatized him for a life that his father wouldn't take him out of the theater. Because it's a different experience. When you're home and you're watching something on TV, you're surrounded by the comforts. But when you're in a theater, you're especially as a little kid, it's always like an event. You want to see something happy. So all of a sudden, that's like you go to see Nemo, and all of a sudden Bruce is eating one of the fish.
Right. And in the theater, as a parent taking your kid, 9 times out of 10, you haven't seen this movie before, so you don't know what's coming.
Right.
So that's part of it as well. I'm sure that anything that you've exposed your kids to, you knew well in advance what you were showing them.
Oh yeah, in that regard, yeah. That was weird. And you said you had kids as well.
Yeah, but my theater was a row of probably 12 to 13-year-old kids, unsupervised. So they were making noises, they were laughing, they weren't watching the movie. Probably the first 20 minutes or so they were doing this, and then they got quiet. I don't know if somebody said something to them or what.
Death stare.
This is an R-rated movie, right? It wasn't PG-13. I'm thinking, how did these kids get in here in the first place?
Because you know why? My theater didn't even have a concession, or not the concession. They didn't have a ticket booth open. You either bought your tickets at the concession stand or you buy them at the kiosk.
Oh, okay.
When you buy them at the kiosk, the computerized, you just walk in. They don't care. I mean, up until last year, I bought my son a kid ticket. Yeah. They don't look.
Yeah, and if I was more involved in the movie, I would have been very upset by them, but, I wasn't. So.
Well, I'll back that up as well, there was a lady in front of me that was on her phone the entire movie, and halfway through, I found myself watching her scroll through. I got so distracted by just it's a long ass movie.
It
First
is.
of all.
Now let's talk about that. Okay, so this runtime, and I was not aware of this going in.
All right.
2 hours and 49 minutes. This is like 10 Commandments length. I don't know who these filmmakers think they are, that they can demand the moviegoer's attention for close to 3 hours.
Yeah, that's relegated to James Cameron only.
Now, this is like a disconnected, hackneyed kind of a plot. There's not a lot of follow through. It's just like event after event after event. There's some growth in the characters, but this story does not warrant a 3 hour time.
No, and I'll tell you, I mean, to be honest, I had a really hard time figuring out what was going on probably the first half hour.
Yeah, and
because they bring these characters in, and you're like, wait, is he supposed to be the older version? Like, I couldn't even remember the kids. I just saw the first one the night before, and I couldn't remember some of their names, nor did I care. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't invested. You know, the only reason you knew Jessica Chastain's character is because she's the only girl redhead.
The only girl, yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, like I said, I don't know. In honor of its one-word title, I am going to give you a one-word review. Tedious.
I would second that. Yes, I would second that.
It is a slog to get through.
The movie opens with a direct lift from the book. There's a scene of a homophobic, not a murder, but
they pummel the kid. And that right there, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. Anyways,
yeah, because you never see those guys, get any comeuppance from doing that.
Right? Perfect. Yeah. No, and I thought that one of those kids was, one of those guys was one of the kids that I didn't know what was going on.
So you think that Pennywise has been vanquished at the end of the first movie, but no. It's kind of explained in a very half-hearted way that this thing comes back every 27 years. So whatever they did in the first movie, like had no ramifications. So he was going to come back anyway, apparently.
Right. Yeah, and just start eating more kids.
So yes, there's a hate crime that takes place outside of a carnival. A young man gets thrown off a bridge by these bigots, and he's floating in the water, but he's still alive. They don't kill him. He sees on the bank, as he's swimming towards the bank, a figure there beckoning towards him, and it's Pennywise. So Pennywise finishes the job that the bigots didn't finish themselves, and he is the first victim in this movie.
Yeah, and I thought he only fed on kids.
But it's not even like because it's a homophobic hate crime. The movie is not even really giving a message that, you have to pay for something like this because the perpetrators get away scot-free.
Yeah, and then the Bauer guy, the bad guy the kid in the first movie, actually gets rewarded for his bad behavior because they bring him back.
Yeah.
Pennywise is I'm going to send some of your dead friends back to help you out.
So I agree that put a bad taste in my mouth, right from the get-go from this movie. Like another mean-spirited, seemed to be right in line with the feeling of the first movie for me. So then you're introduced to the grown-up characters from the first film. I should point out that the kid actors from the first movie are back here, but for flashbacks in new scenes.
Right. And did they I got the impression just on reading some of the reviews that they added stuff that was not in the book.
They did, yeah. And I noticed, I also read that they had to CGI some of those kids to make them look younger.
We figured that was 2 years ago?
Yeah.
So they probably filmed a year. So at least 2. Yeah, my son grew 7 inches in the last 4 months. So, at that age, kids change really quickly. So, yeah, I did read that with Finn Wolfhard. He said that they had to go in and de-age him.
And a couple of their voices were noticeably dubbed as well.
It's crazy. They had to modulate them.
Yeah, because one of the kids was the kid from Shazam.
Yes, and he was a lot of fun. I like the kid. I like I said, I like the kids, and I thought they did a phenomenal job of kind of casting the adult versions.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess Finn Wolfhard actually lobbied. He wanted Bill Hader to play his older self, and at some point they asked them, "Who do you want to play your adult version?" And that's who he chose.
And that's who ultimately did it as well.
And he stole the movie.
He did, yeah.
He absolutely stole the movie.
Now that was, even though it was refreshing whenever he was on because it was a break from the tedium, he was like an island unto himself in this.
Yeah.
His comic relief was so against the grain of everything else that was happening there. It just seemed at odds. Him and itself.
Right. But I think in the real world, that's how most people would kind of deal with this trauma. was, just make funny jokes to, break in the mood somehow.
Right.
But it wasn't like they stopped and laughed at him.
Right.
James McAvoy's character, Bill, was a screenwriter. Now, did that hold true to the book? Because I thought that they were really kind of making fun of Stephen King, because the running joke was that he would write these books, but everybody hated the ending.
I don't remember. I really don't remember.
That's all you don't remember. So I don't know if that, and Stephen King has a cameo, which we'll get into, but I don't know if that was like a veiled backhanded slap at King. But I really felt that maybe that character Bill wrote this script because I hated the ending. Even his wife at the beginning hated his ending.
And then Bill Hader as Richie, as the grown-up version of Finn Wolfhard's character.
And he's a what? Stand-up comedian?
He's a stand-up comedian.
Okay, yeah. Got you.
Famous stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
And then Jessica Chastain. I'm not sure what she does.
I don't think she did anything, but her contemptuous relationship with her father definitely carried over. And she didn't learn from it. She didn't become empowered by her dad's abuse. She just fell victim to it and ended up marrying some guy who abused her just as much. Like I said before, her backstory was more horrific and cringeworthy than half the stuff Pennywise.
I know. And the husband was even more of a caricature than Pennywise himself.
Yeah, no, it was just like, oh, where you going? I heard you named Mike.
Yeah, he's like the poster boy for, wife-beating husbands. Was her husband.
Literally had a wife beater on.
Ridiculous level that he was a jerk.
Yeah, because she came across as a strong character, but obviously, between that and like you said, that opening salvo of the two gay guys getting beat up.
Yeah. So the plot of the movie revolves around Mike, who we just mentioned was the librarian, and he's stayed in Derry, the only one of this gang of kids that has stayed in Derry. So you assume, because everybody else has a case of amnesia regarding Pennywise, that as soon as they left, they forgot about him, maybe as a defense mechanism.
And they forgot about each other.
But I think Mike has been the only one carrying the torch because he spent his adult life researching this.
Yep, right.
And so he's called them back as soon as the hate crime happens and they find the body, mutilated body. He realizes that it's Pennywise.
It's back.
And he calls all those kids back, the adult versions now, because they made a pact that if Pennywise ever came back, that they would all return and finish the job.
But of course, they don't remember it.
And they don't even remember the scars from what those scars are.
They have no idea.
So they all return to Derry except for one, Stanley, who you figure does remember. And he'd rather kill himself than go back.
Yep.
So everybody returns. They convene at this Chinese restaurant for dinner, which ends in a group hallucination, which is performed, which is pretty cool, actually.
I like that when they all started kind of putting the pieces together. That scene I thought was really nice when they all came back and they're just having normal conversations. But again, that to me was like very Spielberg, E.T., kids sitting around the table talking over each other kind of a thing, throwing jokes, making, fat jokes about your mom and all that stuff. It was fun. Yeah.
So they fall right back into being kids again in each other's company. They've remembered, and now they know why they're back in Derry. And Mike gives them this really kind of half-ass backstory about how he studied with the Indians, took mescaline or something.
some hallucinatory root.
And discovered, the secret of Pennywise, what he is, that he's been around for like millennium, and he's been terrorizing generation after generation after generation, going all the way back to the beginning of time, and that he knows the way to defeat this thing. And
he takes on different shapes depending on the eras of whatever.
And depending on like the dominant fears of the era, it's very, very vague and half-hearted explanation.
Just an excuse for him. It was kind of interesting, and he forces Mike. No, I'm sorry. Who's the other? Bill.
James McAvoy.
Bill. It was his story because really it was little Georgie, his little brother, that died at the beginning, and he kind of holds himself responsible for that, and that actually carries through. And I thought that was a nice character thing, where Bill is coming to grips with the fact that he's blamed himself once he starts remembering all this stuff that Georgie died because he did not want to play with him that day.
Yeah, and that was a nice touch because I thought that
it humanized him. more than any of the other characters.
At its core, this movie can't be as scary as the first one because now they're adults, right? It's much scarier as an aspect to have a kid facing
Danger,
like Pennywise, because that speaks to your nightmares and everything else. So the kids are afraid of the thing, of it itself. But the adults, that wouldn't fly so much. So they set up that the adults are really scared of what's inside of them, what's been plaguing them, and it is kind of bringing that out in them rather than scaring them himself. And he is a formidable foe with for all intents and purposes. Right. But really, his main weapon is bringing out whatever deep dark secrets that they hold within themselves.
Yeah, and to your point, they did go out of their way to show like flashbacks where these kids all had individual encounters with Pennywise. Because again, so again, you're feeding on the fear of the kid more so than the adult.
Right. And what's funny is that going back to the mescaline hallucinatory scene with Mike and the Indians, you start seeing all this stuff and you hear the chanting and everything else. And I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen now? Is Jodie Foster's Nell going to come out?
Oh, I love that.
貓，你是Nell，貓死，哎，發能夠夾硬就come。
Tying in the bay. Wow, I haven't thought about that movie in years.
As Jeff said, like after Mike introduces the idea that they could possibly defeat it with this secret Indian method that he's found, they need to come up with their own tokens of what's plaguing them to destroy, to kind of defeat on their own. So then they'll be ready to face Pennywise.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
So that's
even one of the characters says, "What? Wait, so you want us to all split up?" This is how every horror movie ends.
Yeah, so that's how each individual character has their own run-in with Pennywise and has to come up with their own token of what's been plaguing them, what's been scaring them. The Eddie character has a fear of, he's like a hypochondriac. So he's afraid of being infected because of the way that he was brought up, because his mother was that way. And as Jeff said, Bill is plagued by his brother's death. Ben, is it Ben?
Yeah, it was the fat kid, the new kid.
The fat kid. So he's.
Oh, I liked him. I didn't know who that character. I didn't know who that actor was, but I really liked him. And I'm like, what? Maybe they.
Yeah, I was thinking that was the werewolf from Twilight. Is that guy? No.
No, that's Robert Pattinson. Oh no, I know you're talking. Not the vampire.
Not the vampire. The werewolf.
I know you're talking about. What the hell's his name? No, that was not him.
Yeah. So then you got Jessica Chastain. She's obviously dealing with memories of her father, and then Richie, Bill Hader. Did they ever reveal what his secret was? Pennywise kept saying that he had a secret, but I don't know if they ever...
Yeah.
I know your secret, your dirty little secret. I know your secret, your dirty little secret. Should I tell them, Richie? This is real.
No, follow it through. So at the very... I mean, we'll jump to the end, but Eddie is killed by Pennywise. And at the very end, when they're all going their separate ways, he stops at the bridge and he continues. He was carving something into the side of the fence, and it was R+, and then he put in an E. He secretly was in love with Eddie.
I see. By that time, I was so disinterested by that.
Yeah, that was my takeaway. Because you're right. Pennywise did say, "I know your secrets," and that was the flashback scene where the Paul Bunyan statue starts chasing after him, and I was kind of like, "All right, this is kind of neat."
Yeah, that was kind of neat. But the movie, a huge portion of the movie is taken up by these individual encounters with the
Yeah, it really comes to a screeching halt when they split these characters up, and even when they go to the flashbacks and they're all in the clubhouse. Those are the scenes I really like, because I really think that the kid actors I thought were stronger as an ensemble than these adult actors. But did you pick up on the fact that McAvoy every now and again, because he has a stutter, every now and again, he would kind of lapse into his Hedwig character from Split.
My name's Hedwig. I have red socks.
Yes, I did.
There was just a weird little thing. Every now and again, he would just kind of like channel that little kid. And I'm like, maybe he finally ran out of his repertoire.
I was expecting him to start clutching the pearls as the female character from Split.
Patricia?
Patricia, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then there is a nice scene with him, and he sees his old bike, and he realizes that's got to be my totem or whatever. And Stephen King is the proprietor of the
pawn
antique
shop that he goes into.
Antique shop, whatever. He goes, that used to be my bike. And he goes, and now it's mine.
I noticed he was wearing a Neil Young Harvest T-shirt as well.
Is that what it was? I didn't pay attention. It was, yeah. So that was fun. And they realize they have to go back. Like in the first movie, they confront Pennywise at this abandoned house. And it's still there. You're going to tell me 27 years later, no one leveled this thing? That's like prime real estate. I
know. And it's almost sitting on top of a very nice house.
Right. It was like the end of the street. And then it just becomes like the Addams Family house. And it's we don't touch that. We're just going to leave it there. So it was kind of like nobody bought that and developed it. Okay.
And, when you say it's like it's a decrepit old house. It
looked like the old house from Monster House.
So the ending is so stretched out and so long. I don't know if the editor fell asleep on this movie or what.
Oh, I don't know.
It could have easily, I think, had like 50 minutes chopped out of it, and it wouldn't have affected the story at all.
No. Although I will say the Spider Stan head was pretty freaky.
Now, let me point this out, that one of the nightmare visions that it bestows upon these kids is Stan, who has killed himself earlier in the movie. He's haunting them with some visions every now and again of Stan. So there's a scene when Stan's disembodied head grows spider legs, very reminiscent of a scene in John Carpenter's.
I was waiting for you to call that out.
The Thing.
So
much so that Bill Hader says, "You gotta be f***ing kidding."
And that's exactly,
that Palmer, the character Palmer, says in The Thing.
You gotta be f***ing kidding.
So there you go. So
and we've talked about that. That's in our queue. That is coming up soon.
Yes.
We are going to need...
Out of this whole movie, that one callback to The Thing, I think, the only thing that got me excited in this movie. And then
like I said, that whole end fight, and they do the ritual that Mike had set them out to do. They burn their totems. Although, how did he get his bike? Oh no, it was the boat. He ended up with Georgie's boat. And that was his totem.
Yeah, that ended up.
Because I guess he couldn't drag the bike down into the cave. But it doesn't work after all this. And they're like, you lied to us again. Like Mike has lied to them numerous times to get them back to try and fight this thing, even though he knew that it probably wasn't really going to work.
But he thought it would. He was hopeful that it would work.
Well, he was hopeful. Well, you can't be hopeful. He was kind of like, well, I thought it would work. All right, dude, you now sealed our deaths. So, but the way I'm guessing this is true to the book. I mean, they belittle him. That's how he dies.
Yes, that was ridiculous.
Horrible.
Ridiculous. Horrible. Now in the book and in the original miniseries, he did have like a set original form. It was kind of like a giant bug thing, which he half became at the end of this movie. Because at the end of the miniseries, he becomes like full-on bug at the end, and that's supposed to be his original form. So I think as like a nod to that, Pennywise becomes like half bug, but he's like a minotaur, but with a bug's body instead of a horse's body.
Yeah, he's got like, I don't know, he's got like Gigan claws.
Yes.
But I mean, I hate to say it, but I kind of laughed out loud. And one of the detractors of people are complaining about this is that it's got bad CGI. I didn't come out of the movie and be like, oh, that's unrealistic. I've never seen a clown that big before. So stay with me. So this thing has been here for millennia. So he's a killer clown from outer space.
Yes.
He's literally a killer clown from outer space.
These two movies could exist in the same universe.
And they should.
They should.
They should.
All it was missing was in the sewer, the cotton candy cocoons hanging from the ceiling.
Well, they could have just taken him out with a giant seltzer bottle.
They could have.
That would have been fun.
But yeah, to your point, they beat him by calling him names.
Yeah, belittling him.
Easy as that. Make him small. Make him
a sad little bitch. Yeah, it's.
They call him names throughout these two movies.
I know, but now sticks and stones, right? Like I said before, I feel like the character of Bill actually wrote this because I hated that ending, and it was just, I wanted to forget this afterwards. I'm like, I hope my memory goes away.
Bill Skarsgård plays Pennywise,
and we need to talk about him because he really is awesome.
Okay, going back to the CGI element. Now, this is really what separates the men from the boys here, because the generations. Because in the Tim Curry version, it was Tim. The movie makers were dependent on him to deliver the scares. He didn't have the aid of CGI.
We'll just fix it in post.
Yeah, they liberally use it in this movie, and Bill Skarsgård, as good as he is, it's like they can't leave him alone. Every scare has to be CGI enhanced in some way, and I think that detracts.
Although I will tell you, he can actually independently move his eye separately.
I was thinking that was a contact lens.
No, actually, I guess Hader mentioned it, and he I guess he was kind of off put by it, and Skarsgård's like, "What, you mean this?" And he does it right in front of him and freaked him out. But other than that, yeah, you know, the multiple rows of teeth that come out, and I thought he was more scary when you saw him like in human form.
Yeah, now that's
outside of the clown makeup, because you see him a couple times, like when she goes back to her dad's apartment and the old lady, that's not CG enhanced either. That's her performance where she just freezes and then kind of like comes out of it.
I was going to say, when she's naked and runs at Beverly, they didn't.
No, that was that was the lady in Hellboy. What was that?
Oh yeah,
Babadook or whatever that was. But I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, and she sees, the old lady's telling her, "Oh yeah, my dad was a circus performer," and you see him on the wall as human.
Your photos are lovely, Miss Kirsch. Are these your family?
My father came to this country with $14 in his pocket.
What did he do, Mrs. Kirsch?
My father joined the circus.
And you're but he's still got like that weird head proportion kind of a thing going on.
But what are they saying there?
I don't know, because if you're telling me he's like some creature, some alien that's just come down to feed every 27 years, he's like a cicada. He's like a psychotic cicada.
So did this being, this clown from outer space, take the form of this performer at some point? And
it must have, and take the name too, Pennywise.
Because the man himself, the father of this old woman, couldn't be Pennywise because, it's already been established that this thing is an ancient evil. So,
well, maybe that was just his latest incarnation. Because the Indians were implying that he looked more like a skinwalker or like a werewolf looking thing. And some of those hallucinogenic flashbacks, he was taking on different forms. So maybe this was just the latest and said, I'm gonna be a clown now.
Yeah, this guy did it right. I think I'm gonna look like this guy.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. I don't know. I don't know what his motivation was. But he liked little kids. He liked to eat little kids. I kept waiting for Georgie to come back. Georgie's not coming back. Don't hold your breath, kids, because Georgie's gone.
We didn't talk about the kid, the delinquent from the first movie. That's kind of Pennywise's slave.
I don't. It was stupid. It was, and then yet another subplot. Richie thought it was another one of these, hallucinations brought on by Pennywise. Now it was the real guy who broke out of prison and basically.
And do the police think that he killed all those kids that washed out of the sewer with him?
That was, like I said, the beginning of the movie, I got really confused because they kept flashing back and showing him like as a kid. And I didn't understand that it was a flashback. I'm like, what is going on here? I was confused for a little bit. I eventually got it together, but and this Corvette his car was just waiting for him.
Yeah, driven by his dead friend, buddy, right?
Yeah. Someone watched American Werewolf in London too many times. He's going to give you.
And they never went anywhere with that either.
No, just he could reanimate corpses or whatever, just to get him out of. It was a stupid side plot that made
So all right, I think we've spent enough time.
Oh, we spent way too much time.
It's already taken up enough of our time just watching this movie. Yes. So I think we ought to wrap this up. Buckets.
I gave 3 1/4 for chapter 1. I did enjoy it immensely. I can't get this more than 2.5. And
I wouldn't even go that far. I would give chapter 1 2.5 and this one 2.
Yeah.
And that's mostly for Bill Hader.
Yeah, I did enjoy him. And it's too bad. I mean, whatever. I always say it. No one sets out to make a bad movie. And there's people out there that are championing this. I've saw it twice already. I loved it. The characters that's fine. That's great. I'm happy somebody likes it. It is long though.
It is long. Yeah. So get your extra popcorn.
I had nothing. I walked in, I was like detoxing. I had no soda. I had no popcorn.
Did you have to take a bathroom break at any point?
No, I don't. Now, if this was Waterworld, that would be something different. 3 hours of sitting on the waves after a while. So yeah, we've established this guy is a killer clown from outer space. Yes. So perfect pairing. Perfect
pairing. So now before we venture to Killer Klowns from Outer Space, I thought I would offer up a clown-centric intermission.
No. Will we talk about Podcoin?
Yes, let's talk about Podcoin.
This is your bathroom break, folks.
Yes, here we go. Hey there, Nerdkinders. Did you know that you can actually get paid just for listening to this podcast?
It's true.
Wait, is this the Podcoin app we were talking about last episode?
Yeah, it's a free app that actually pays you to listen to podcasts.
I've actually been using it for a while now. So when can I expect my big paycheck to roll in?
Slow down there, Colonel Steve Austin. You listen to podcasts and earn Podcoin points while you listen. Then you turn those points in for gift cards at places like Amazon or Starbucks.
Hi, Starbucks blonde vanilla bean cocoa milk latte.
Or
there are multiple causes available to donate your points to. But since it's no secret that we here at TMI rely heavily on our local library systems to feed our classic movie feature, we thought it would be noble to get you, our listeners, to donate to the Books for Poor Kids charity.
All right, I like it. A podcast with a cause.
So rebellious.
Here's all you need to do. Step 1, download the Podcoin app right now on your phone.
I'm assuming it's available for iPhone and Android?
Yes. Step 2, use our code TMI NERDKIND. That's TMI NERDKIND to get 300 Podcoin just for signing up. Step 3, subscribe and listen to TMI every Wednesday or any of your favorite podcasts. We don't mind, as long as you earn points. Don't forget to use our unique code, TMI NERDKIND. The more you listen, the more you earn.
Funny, I never thought of Jeff as a latte kind of guy.
Okay, everybody ready to get your picture taken? To celebrate cheeseburger time at McDonald's, Ronald was taking pictures of all his friends.
Okay, now smile and say cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger!
Very good. Here's a cheeseburger for you. Hey, who's next? Susie. All set? Okay, smile and say
Cheeseburger!
very good. Here's a cheeseburger for you. You know McDonald's cheeseburgers are so delicious you almost have to smile.
Ahoy! How about a cheeseburger for me?
Oh no, Captain Crook, not till you learn to smile.
Oh, really? Watch this. Cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger!
He did it! Yeah! If you want something to smile about, just say cheeseburger at McDonald's.
In McDonald's land of McDonald's. In McDonald's land of McDonald's. In McDonald's.
It was a night like any other night. Then something happened.
You see that?
Something different.
It's no shooting star.
Why here? Why now? Why clowns? They've been knocking them dead all over the universe.
What are you gonna do? Knock my block off?
Soon they'll be doing it at a theater near you.
Killer Klowns from outer space.
Maybe they're just cruising through the galaxy and stopped here for a bite to eat.
You don't need a police pal, you need a psychiatrist. They want to play games? They're messing with the wrong guy. What are you in for?
Killer Klowns from outer space. It's crazy.
Okay, we're back. We are now discussing Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
Before we get into that, I have a little aside based on your commercial there, which is how can you tell Ronald McDonald in a nudist colony?
How?
He's the one with sesame seeds on his buns. A little fourth grade humor there for you folks. Sorry.
Remember McDonald's gift certificates? Those little they used to have commercials for. You'd get them in your stockings at Christmas.
Yeah, for like a free small fry.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm just pulling out some of my stuff that I have collected over the years, and I have a couple Happy Meal boxes from when Star Trek motion picture came out.
I think that was one of the first Happy Meals ever.
Probably, yeah, 79.
Yeah.
Right? 79, yeah.
Those were when they used to give you the cookie. Those cookies were good.
You got the cookie, you got the apple pie that would just scald the living right out of the roof of your mouth. Now you're lucky. I don't even think they make them anymore.
Was that before? I think the first Happy Meal may have predated McNuggets.
Yes, they did. The first, I remember my dad bought, like, we went to like some park and we bought like just a box of 24 nuggets for like the entire family. It was like, I can eat it on my own now.
And in the old days, more than half the nuggets would be like black, slimy meat, too.
Oh, I loved it. I was so mad when they went with white meat. I like the dark meat ones. But we digress.
Yes, we do.
So let's cleanse our palate a little bit here, because you have never seen Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
No, and I'm remiss to point out, even up until this point, that this is another request that my cousin Lauren has requested many times for us to cover Killer Klowns from Outer Space, so much so that she sent me a copy of the Blu-ray as a Christmas gift in hopes that we would cover it.
And I thank you, Lauren, because this has been on my list for a while, but I didn't really know how I was going to get these guys to watch it.
And of course, with covering it really just presented itself. The opportunity came up in a perfect way that we could pair it with Killer Klowns from Outer Space. And so hence you get this episode today.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I told my wife what I was going to go see in the theater, she goes, "You just watched a clown movie." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the theme, is clowns." She just looked at me like, "You idiots." Oh, man.
Now, just watching this and looking at the opening credits and hearing that Dickies song, the title track, Killer Klowns from Outer Space, you can envision watching this on USA Network or something on a Saturday night at 11:30 or what have you. It's just the perfect schlocky 80s.
It is campy schlock. It's schlock. It is. That's a perfect description.
And I was a first-time watcher, and I enjoyed this so much more than It Part 2.
You can't. How can you not? This movie is genius. I love this movie.
Yeah, because the first 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, this is really stupid. This is too stupid for me to even enjoy. But then as it got into it, I'm like, I started to see the genius in it.
Yeah, it is. And there is no clown cliche left unturned. You want to see a bunch of killer clowns coming out of a tiny car? You got it. You want to see a clown's nose blow up with confetti coming out? You got it. It's the cotton candy guns. And then there's a scene. So we'll get into it because there's a lot going on. But it doesn't take itself too seriously at all.
No.
And the one thing I'll tell you, which is the Kyoto brothers who directed this, their names like all over the credits. They hired all their family and friends to be in this, but they grew up, and one of their biggest influences as a kid, they grew up in the New York area, was the $1 Million movie that used to be on WWOR.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this was probably like late 60s, early 70s. And that's where they got their, you talk about the 4:30 movie, but they, Forbidden Planet, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, in The Blob, which this whole premise, this whole story is basically The Blob. They stole the script for The Blob. But so, that's where they came in, and that's where they were influenced by some of this stuff. And from what I understand, they backed and funded a lot of this on their own. This was kind of like their baby that they just envisioned, and they knew they had something fun and they wanted to make it happen.
Now, is it true that these guys were special effects artists before they took this on?
Yes, as a matter of fact, on the Blu-ray, there is a couple of their homemade movies. They would go out and they would do stop motion, and they would be their friends in the backyard in the neighborhood, and they would have to fight this monster. It's actually pretty cool, for a bunch of 9-10-year-olds running around with an 8mm camera. I guess the parents didn't really know what they were getting into when they allowed them to kind of go away and do this special effects stuff. But yeah, and I think this is like their one-hit wonder. I don't think they've ever done anything afterwards.
No. I was trying to see if they've ever done another movie. They've never directed anything else, but they've been trying for many years to get a sequel off the ground. And Sci-Fi, I think the latest word on that is the Sci-Fi Network are looking to buy the rights for a possible TV show / sequel.
Oh, okay. It could become a whole genre.
Yeah.
And this, I don't think it did well when it first was released, but it's definitely taken on cult status.
Oh yeah, I don't remember this playing in theaters. I think I just a video thing.
I don't remember the first time I saw this. But from the beginning, I just thought it was absolutely genius, and it looked phenomenal on Blu-ray.
It did.
Really, for a 1988 movie, I mean, those colors just popped. It was yeah. So,
and it is very colorful. Now, as you were saying, this is very much like the Blob, even down to the old man that first discovers the big top spaceship that comes down.
Yep.
He's even got the same shovel, bucket, and dog that the old guy from the beginning of the Blob. And I noticed his name was Gene Green.
Right.
Like, an alter, Mr. Green Jeans, but he's Gene Green. So, and he's got some good lines as well. I'll be greased and fried.
Yeah, the circus is in town.
Where's my dog? Where's my Pooh Bear? I'll tear this thing apart with my bare hands.
Not my Pooh Bear. That was the dog's name. Pooh Bear. The actor's name was Royal Dano, and do you know what his claim to fame is?
No.
He is the voice of Abraham Lincoln in Disney World's Hall of Presidents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and to this day, that's his voice. And I'm like, that's kind of cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, so.
And then you're introduced to your classic 30-year-old playing a teenager.
Right. I know that the girl's name was Debbie. She was played by Susanna Snyder. And she was like she was all over 80s television, yeah. And I guess she was in Weird Science. You had Chris Titus.
Also in The Last Starfighter.
She was.
And Night of the Creeps, if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, no, that's Last Starfighter.
Her boyfriend, his character's name is Mike Tobacco.
So is that his last name? I don't remember
his last name. Played by Grant Kramer. And he is also hanging out there waiting for this sequel to happen because I guess he plays a big part in the sequels.
In his mind, he does.
Yeah.
So what, they have the sequel written and they're just waiting for someone to like greenlight it?
Pick it up, yeah. They've already got the story written and everything. So apparently that this character of Mike Tobacco is now the town drunk and nobody ever believes
him. And they come back.
Until they come back, yes.
Until they come back.
But the movie starts with Mike and Debbie at Lover's Lane with a bunch of other people. He's got an inflatable raft all set up in the back of his Jeep. He's got champagne flutes. So he is pulled out all the stops to woo Debbie at this Lover's Lane retreat. And that's when they see the shooting star. So soon after the old man gets it, Debbie and Mike go to investigate. They actually get inside the thing, which is a giant big top, like a spinning top, big top kind of a thing. And that's where they discover something weird is going on. They find a giant chamber of what looks like cotton candy cocoons that the clowns use to encase their victims after they're killed. And apparently this cocoon breaks down the person. So the clowns can later come in there, stick a crazy straw in, and suck out their essence.
Genius.
Much like the Skeksis in Dark Crystal.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And visually, this is just top-notch. The clowns are creepy, but they're funny at the same time. But like you said, the cotton candy guns, everything is like over-the-top cartoon looking. And the sound effects and the music just adds to it. It's always that calliope, carnival festive sounds. All the sound effects sound like they came right out of a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, visually it's pretty impressive. And inside that ship, I guess, the big top. And Fantasy 2 Film Effects did all the special effects.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, the directors who are special effects expert, well, I don't know if experts is taken too far, but they didn't do the special effects in this movie except for JoJo the Clownzilla at the end. I think one of the brothers actually
one of them
do that scene. I think most of the budget probably went into the animatronic facial expressions of the clown because they are very impressive. Especially they hold up to close-ups and everything else.
Yeah, like I said, it really, on Blu-ray, it holds together. I was very impressed. Although the 80s hair definitely abounds in this. Debbie's hair was straight up 88. And I like the fact she makes that leap that it's an alien ship because, as she puts it, no one stores cotton candy like this. that's all it takes. They gotta be aliens. Like I said, the ingenious production. If you're not on board when Mike and Debbie are on the run and all the clowns are chasing them, and the clown immediately pulls out a balloon, makes it into a dog animal, and then puts it on a leash and starts chasing him, and the dog balloon is like sniffing the ground and barking. If you're not on board by then just turn it off, because that set me over the edge. That is like great.
And I read somewhere that they had to paint that dog's legs with latex so it wouldn't pop on the pine needles as the clowns were chasing Mike and Debbie.
Yeah, I mean, you got shadow puppets, you got popcorn critters, you got, like I said, there's no clown cliche that's not overturned in this.
And there's a lot more clowns than you think because you only see a couple in the beginning of the movie, but there's scores that come out of the ship once Mike and Debbie escape and kind of take over the town, killing people left and right. The police officers, one of them is Debbie's ex-boyfriend, so she gets around, even in high school. And his commanding officer is the curmudgeonly older guy that doesn't believe anything's going on. People start calling in.
And he thinks that they're all
he thinks they're all pranking him.
He's also drinking Jack Daniels on the job, so, his priorities are straight. Mooney, that was his name.
Mooney, yeah. And then he finally gets it at the end in a very tourist trap reminiscent scene where the clown kind of shoves his hand into his back and uses him as a ventriloquist.
Don't worry, Dave. All we want to do is kill you.
Yeah, he was the worst cop ever. Yeah, they usually just get. Oh, the pie was pretty impressive too. It just dissolved. The guy got.
That's probably my favorite line in the movie when he sees the security guard at the carnival, sees the clowns with pies in their hands, and his line.
What are you going to do with those pies, boys?
He just starts getting hammered.
Now, I read that the directors were trying their hardest to get Soupy Sales to
that would have been great.
Security guard. Now, that would have put the movie over the top for me. Imagine him.
Soupy Sales.
Who spent his career getting hit in the face with pies, asking, what are you going to do with those pies, boy? And he agreed to do it, but it wasn't in the budget to pay for his plane ticket.
Oh, my gosh.
Bring him to the set. The studio wouldn't pay for him because they thought that no kid of the 80s would know who that guy was. So a great
point. They had a point. Then we need to talk about the Taranzi brothers who ran the ice cream truck.
Yeah, what were they doing there? Like,
I don't know.
Worst comedy duo in the history of.
Yeah, because they weren't funny at all. They were just like bickering brothers.
Calling all clowns, calling all clowns. This is JoJo. Are there any space clowns out there?
You guys, will you stop fooling around?
But I got like little. Do you remember Reggie from Phantasm? Like, didn't he drive an ice cream truck too?
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, the Taranzi brothers were, I guess they were supposed to be comic relief, but you're getting all the comedy from the clowns.
I know. And
so I think they were unnecessary. They were not warranted. And apparently they were supposed to die at the end, and they decided that they were going to save them and the ex-boyfriend cop.
And an ending very reminiscent of Independence Day with Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith smoking cigars, walking out of the wreck that just, fell from space and crashed into the desert. A very similar thing.
It's just so absurd. And they realize they can take these clowns out by shooting their nose. The only thing that they missed was squirting water, into their mouths to make their heads blow up or something.
Right. Oh, that would have been.
That was about the only clown. One of the clowns looked like B. Arthur, I thought. That would have been great if she was like their overlord.
The little guy, the little clown runs into the bikers.
Oh, yes.
Who destroy his little bike, and then he ends up beheading the...
Right.
Can I take a ride? Can I beep the horn? What are you gonna do? Knock my block off?
Right.
And he sure does.
He does. Knocks his head clean off. And the clown footprints on the ground, on the walls. Just, it's silly. It's silly stuff, but it's fun.
And the shadow puppet scene.
That was great.
Yeah.
He turns into a T-Rex and eats all the people sitting there watching him.
So I got the impression watching this that they were building up the Terenzi brothers so much, especially the character of Mike. Oh, these guys are crazy. You never know what's going to happen when you hang out with
these guys. Do something.
What are they, trying to make their own franchise out of the Terenzi brothers?
I think his best line was, anyone want a dipsicle? But they vanquish, they blow up the ship, and at the very end, they're all hit with pies. Now, wouldn't the pies have just dissolved their skin? Did we just establish that the pies were like...
Yeah, that was like, it's like a freeze frame at the end on them getting hit in the face with these pies. Like, yeah, they're supposed to be a pile of mush after that.
Right. I will say that over the years, I have subjected my wife to many, many offbeat movies in our 25 years. And she's claimed, hands down, this is the worst movie I've ever made her watch.
Now, did she watch it for the first time just this weekend?
Oh, no, we've seen this. No, I've forced her to watch this years ago. And she sat through Cabin Boy, Chris Elliott's Cabin Boy, and she puts this worse than that. I will tell you, it's true love, though, that she keeps coming back.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's that bad. I've seen much worse. This is not, again, this is a movie that's made to be schlocky. It is made to tickle that funny bone. You cannot take this seriously.
No. I did see an interview with the composer. And he says people who get this are nice people. Those who don't get it have unresolved issues. Put that on the box.
This is a cult classic. I have no idea. I couldn't find any box office figures. That's why
I don't even know if they're
ever opened in wide release.
Right.
But it's taken up a cult following. And Jeff, I believe, is a true believer in the cult of Killer Klowns.
I guess I am, yeah.
And so much so that last year and this year, it is an official scare zone at Universal Studios.
Really?
At Halloween Horror Nights.
Interesting.
So I was reading the Killer Klowns haunted house is like a big top. So it's like going through their spaceship. And outside the haunted house is a mock-up of the ice cream truck of the
very cool. See, I would do that. I don't like people chasing me looking like zombies or you got a chainsaw, but I could probably handle these clowns.
Clowns jumping out at you, yeah.
Yeah, well, they're big goofy clowns like that.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd end up in a cotton candy cocoon, but I'd be laughing my ass off all the way.
The budget was so low that there's one scene where the police cruiser crashes into the back of the ice cream truck, but if you watch it closely, it doesn't actually come into contact. It's all sound effects and smoke because they rented these cars and they weren't allowed to do any damage to them. Guerrilla filmmaking at its finest.
There you go. If you've never seen this, go watch it.
So what would you give Killer Klowns from?
I'm going at least 4 1/4.
4 1/4.
4 1/4. This is again. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, then not every movie's for everyone. But I do enjoy this movie, and every time I watch it, I do kind of see something new. It's been a while, but like I said, I had picked it up on Blu-ray probably about 2 years ago. It sat there, and so I popped it open, and it looked damn good. So,
I would probably go 1 bucket less, just because I don't have the history with it. So I would say 3 1/4.
Okay, that's fair. Clowns. Are we done with clowns now? We're never going to do another clown.
Well, it's possible. Are there any other clown movies out there?
I don't.
The Joker.
Got did you read that they got like a 6 or 7 minute standing ovation?
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to have to see it. We're going to have to talk about it.
Now, yeah, this is interesting. Are they going to incorporate this iteration of the Joker into the DC universe?
I don't think so. I think it's just going to be a standalone. People are up in arms because the Joker never really had a name, and the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton they gave him a bit of a backstory in the name, but I guess in the comics they never really went that far. I'm sure somewhere over the years someone has tried to.
So Robert Pattinson's Batman is never going to meet Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, apparently.
I hope not. I don't know.
Well,
I guess we'll find out. Yeah.
We'll have to see.
I doubt it. But yeah.
So all this discussion of clowns leads us to our confessional this week.
Confessionals.
We're asking ourselves if we have any phobias we would like to share with you, the listening audience. Because most of the population, I think, does have a clown phobia. And what is that technical term?
Oh, I had it written down somewhere. You're going to have to.
Coulrophobia, fear of clowns. All right, so what do you got? What is your phobia, Jeff?
Well,
what scares you?
I kind of laid this out here a couple episodes ago with the shark thing, but I'm kind of over it now. So I don't know. I don't necessarily have a phobia that what's the phobia? Fear of failure.
That's called life.
I like to be happy-go-lucky. The shark thing was, for years kind of put me in my place, but I guess you can get over it, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Clowns
All it would take, though, would be you to be in the water with a great white, I think, and it would come roaring back.
It could. Like I said, we've talked about the idea of going like cage diving, kind of like.
But again, Jeff, how could you do that? Because we were talking about Jaws not too long ago, and we were both saying how terrifying it would be just to be in the water with the mechanical shark. How could you do cage diving with
listen, I'm talking all brave right now because we're sitting behind our computers in my dry basement. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I say that now.
So I say that it's there, still there latently inside you.
I've just done a really good job of masking it.
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah. I think I'll never master it, but I don't know. What's yours?
I've got two that are equally scary to me. I do not like heights.
Okay.
At all. Like, I've been to the top of the Empire State Building and to the World Trade Center when it still stood. And especially the World Trade Center, if you weren't on the very, very top outside in the elements, you were on the observation deck, which was just below the roof. And the Empire State Building is tapered, so it goes up to a point at the top, obviously. But the World Trade Center, the way that they stood, it was straight down. It was just like the moniker of Channel 11. And they used to take those buildings and use them in all their commercials because it was just like an 11, 2 ones straight down. So if you were on that top floor and you were at the window, you could look down and you would be looking straight down the side of that building. And I remember vividly when the first time I went up to the top of those, because I was very excited to do so as a kid in the late 70s, because King Kong had come out by then.
Sure, yeah.
King Kong had climbed the top of the World Trade Center, and Jeff Bridges was on location on the top floor, supposedly watching the action happening from one of the towers, and Kong was on the other one. So that was all in my mind going up to the top, and even in the lobby at that time, they had a little picture of King Kong just to commemorate that movie. So, but I remember as a kid looking down, like pressing my face against the window and looking down and seeing down the side of the building all the way to the courtyard. And just this huge sweeping vertigo just came over me. And I couldn't go by. After that, I couldn't even walk by the window. I kept as far away from that window as I could and refused to even go up to the roof.
Did you ever get the urge to jump?
No.
Yeah. I think it's in Chicago, isn't it? In the Sears Tower, the glass is tilted slightly so you can kind of lean out over.
You can see, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that fear, and then there's also the fear of enclosed spaces. I do not like that.
Ooh, my wife does not like elevators. She does not like
where I can't get out. And not even an elevator, but something like even tighter than that. Because there's a movie called The Descent. It's a horror movie, and it's about what do you call it?
Spelunkers, right? Spelunking?
Yes. So they encounter. It's a group of girls that go spelunking in West Virginia, and they encounter some like weird subspecies of being under the ground. And there's a lot of scenes where they're like tightly trying to get through these. I found it very hard to watch because it just hits too close to home. I can't watch that. So those are my two phobias.
Wow. So a glass elevator outside a building would not be your happy place.
No. I would probably go into the fetal position and.
So the idea of going out west to that the walkway, They have the walkway now out on the Grand Canyon, and it's all glass bottom.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's like a U. It goes out and then it comes back, right?
Yeah, it's like a horseshoe. Yep.
Yeah.
That'd be a deal breaker for you, huh?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's as you were describing. I was getting vertigo, so maybe I think we all have that a little bit.
So there you go. There's our episode today.
All right, clowns. I hope it was funny for you.
So next week we are having a very special episode. This is
an after-school special.
An after-school special, and we're concentrating on just that, the programming that you would see after you got home from school on a weekday. So this is going back to our childhood. So we're talking late 70s, early mid 80s.
Yeah. And beyond, because some of us never stopped watching cartoons.
And next weekend, I'll be in California at Magic Kingdom checking out Galaxy's Edge. So
I hope you start posting some pictures on our Facebook page.
I will. If anybody's in California and is visiting Disneyland next week, look out for someone with the TMI t-shirt, because that will most likely be me. So
it would be you, because no one else owns a TMI shirt.
I would be shocked. That's my podcast.
I'm your number one fan.
Yeah.
Stalking.
So when one of us goes on vacation, that means a very special episode works.
And recorded weeks ago.
Yeah. So
but it's new for you. So
it's new for you. So we're going to unleash it on the general public next week.
Yes. And we had fun. We had a lot of fun reminiscing.
It's one of our better episodes, I think. So
nice.
Listen, please.
And you've listened to all of them.
I have.
Numerous times.
Yep. So, all right.
Nice.
As ever, thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate it. And we hope to have Mike back soon. We'll just keep trudging.
Yes, we will. As always.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Over and out.
What are you going to do with those pies, boys?